9 Craziest Murder Weapons. 1. The woman who tried to kill her husband by dousing her genitals in poison. An unidentified man from São José, Rio Preto, Brazil accused his wife of lacing her genitals with poison and then asking him to perform oral sex. The man became suspicious after noticing a potent, toxic odor emanating from his wife's privates and opted to take her to a local hospital. Medical tests concluded that her vagina was drenched in poison, and she had no choice but to fess up. It was there she admitted that she planned on killing her partner. Ironically, despite the woman's idiotic attempt to murder her husband, it was he who ended up saving her life. She had placed enough of the unnamed poison in her vagina to kill both of them. They both survived, but their marriage did not. The poor guy filed for divorce and sued his former companion for attempted murder. 2. The man who murdered a drug addict by tapping his head with a dessert spoon. In 2003, a heroin addict, Richard Clare, was charged in the murder of a fellow junkie. A spat had taken place between Clare and Timothy McGee, who took a blow to the head with a dessert spoon and died shortly after. Clare allegedly hit McGee on the back of the head with the spoon after he had taken a mobile phone from a third man. He stole the phone in hopes of trading it for heroin. The spoon's impact ruptured an artery and caused fatal bleeding in the area between his skull and brain. During the trial, Richard insisted that he acted in self-defense after being head-butted by McGee and was eventually cleared of all charges. However, 7 years later, he was charged with a second murder and is now serving 27 years in jail. 3. The woman who used canned vegetables to bludgeon her boyfriend to death. What do the ingredients peas, carrots, and chicken broth have in common? If your answer was the makings of a mediocre soup, you were pretty close. In this instance, however, the correct answer would be murder. In June 2015, prosecutors filed charges against Linda Jackson 2 days after she savagely beat her boyfriend, 59-year-old David Ruiz, who died from the severity of his injuries. Jackson was charged with a single count of murder, and her bail has been set at $1 million. She never gave a motive for her actions, but if convicted, the native Californian could face life in prison. 4. The man who used a ricin-filled umbrella to carry out an assassination plot. On September 7, 1978, Georgy Markov was walking across the Waterloo Bridge to catch a bus to his job at the BBC. He suddenly experienced a stinging sensation in the back of his right leg. He turned around and locked eyes with an unfamiliar male who then picked up his umbrella and hastily ran off after apologizing. Markov never really thought much of the incident after that. He wrote it off as merely a bug bite. Later in the day, he noticed that the bite had become inflamed and the stinging sensation had yet to dull. This led Markov to mention the incident on the bridge to at least one of his colleagues. By the end of the workday, the middle-aged writer had developed a high fever. He was admitted to St. James Hospital where he died 4 days after his run-in with the mysterious man. A post-mortem investigation was conducted. Medical examiners retrieved a ricin-filled pellet from his right thigh and labeled it as the immediate cause of death. To this day, detectives have not found Markov's assassin. 5. The teen who murdered his abuser with a 10-pound pickle jar. In 2010, Daniel Kovarbasic, 16, was sentenced to 5 years of probation for the January 22 slaying of Dwayne Hurley inside his North Ridgeville, Ohio home. Hurley, who was an acquaintance of the Kovarbasic family, was beaten to death with a 10-pound pickle jar after the teenager claimed that he was subjected to several years of sexual abuse by the family friend. Kovacic testified that the abuse had gone on for nearly 3 years. As a form of reward, Hurley would give the 16-year-old cash and gifts in exchange for his silence. On the evening that Kovacic murdered his abuser, he confessed to the court that he'd simply reached his breaking point after Hurley solicited sexual favors in exchange for using his car to go on a date. Hurley's autopsy determined that the 3 blows he received were fatal, but Kovacic stabbed his predator an additional 55 times with a massive kitchen knife. Kovacic was convicted of manslaughter and received 5 years of probation instead of serving an actual prison sentence. 6. The woman who used her prosthetic leg to beat her lover to death. Deborah Hewitt, a homeless woman from Lafayette, Louisiana, was found guilty in the slaying of 47-year-old boyfriend Dwayne Ball after beating him to death with her prosthetic leg. Ball's decomposed body was recovered 6 weeks after his demise. He had been choked, beaten and stabbed. The number of wounds and weapons that were used indicated that Hewitt had clearly left him for dead. Hewitt carried out the crime with another boyfriend, John Romini. She eventually admitted to stabbing Ball but pinned Romini as the responsible party for his strangulation. She claimed to have killed Dwayne out of fear, but no one found her story to be credible. Hewitt and Romaine were given mandatory life sentences for the crime. 7. The man who used an Xbox 360 to murder his girlfriend. "She wouldn't die. I fought her like I was fighting a dragon," said Darius Johnson, who confessed that he had murdered his girlfriend, Monica Gooden, on Easter 2013. Johnson said he had killed the woman because he felt that she had a hold on his spirit. More specifically, he needed to kill someone that fell under the astrological sign of a Taurus. Monica Gooden was nowhere close to being a Taurus. She was born in the month of November. Officers recovered a broken and bloody Xbox next to the body of Gooden, along with 3 knives. It remains undetermined as to whether or not that the gaming system was the actual murder weapon, or if it was just used to render the victim unconscious. There were no signs that she, in any way, tried to shield herself during the time that she was being stabbed. Darius Johnson currently serves a life sentence. 8. The woman who smothered her boyfriend to death with her breasts. Residents of the airport and RV park in Everett, Washington were shocked when their neighbor died after being smothered by girlfriend Donna Lang's breasts. Witnesses recall that earlier in the day, in a drug and alcohol-fueled state, the couple began arguing. Lang, who was significantly heavier than her boyfriend, body slammed him to the ground. Neighbors heard a struggle between the two, with a male shouting for his disgruntled girlfriend to get off of him. By the time officers arrived, Lang was unconscious on top of her partner, who was no longer breathing. Medics performed CPR, but it was of little use. He was pronounced died on arrival at Washington Swedish Medical Center. Medical examiners confirmed that the man indeed died from an obstructed airway and that clumps of Lang's hair was found in his hands, which suggested a struggle. Although Lang expressed great remorse for the death of her lover, she said that she had no recollection as to how he died. 9. The man who killed his mistress with a toilet lid after she threatened to reveal their affair. In 2006, Marvin Hill killed his 28-year-old mistress Christina Eubanks after deciding to end their affair. When he tried to break it off, an upset Eubanks had threatened to reveal the nature of their relationship to Hill's wife. This sent Hill, who was working on a plumbing problem throughout the argument, into a rage. He mercilessly struck his lover with a toilet lid until she was no longer breathing. The 49-year-old then placed a dog leash around her neck and dragged her lifeless body to his vehicle. He disposed of it in a creek near the home he shared with his wife. It took a jury about 3 hours to find Marvin Hill guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving a minimum of 51 years. While it's fairly unlikely he'll be 100 years old at the time of eligibility. Subscribe to watch more.